Come on.
So good morning again. Let me get all set up here. I wanted to say also that thank you guys, those of you that had kids last week in our performance, or those of you that helped or watched. It was such a great performance. That's always one of my favorite times of the year because they're so cute. They're just so fun. And again, thank you, Rachel and the team, for working hard today too. Whenever Caden is on the beach, they waited a little bit for their honeymoon because Amy could be done with her finals. So that's why it's kind of a little bit after their wedding. So this week we are going to start, for the rest of this Christmas season, we're going to start a new series called Travel Light. Now, I don't know how many of you travel very much, but do any of you have a friend, or are you the person that when it's time to go somewhere that you pack a little extra? You maybe have a little more than you need to be taking on that trip. The first service, Mark pointed to me, and the second service, my daughter's pointing to me, so Kyle too. So I have a friend named Veronica, and we went camping one time. And by camping, I mean we went to New Harmony and went in a nice cabin and stayed in the cabin and cooked our meals there and things. But it was about 5 of us, and we all made fun of Veronica because we were just there for one day and then overnight and then all the next day. So really it was just one night that we were spending the night. She brought 2 suitcases and a whole makeup case thing. And the rest of us were just in our PJs and no makeup or anything the whole time we were there. So we made so much fun of her. But if we think about this Christmas season that's coming up, sometimes we all have some baggage that we bring into the season. And I don't mean literal suitcases. I mean, if you think about, some of you will be spending time with families. And sometimes that idea of spending some time with your family might bring up some kind of ideas or some things that are going on, just in your heart as you're thinking about spending time with family. Or maybe you don't spend time with family because of some issues, or maybe they're no longer here, which also brings up some sadness and some things in your heart. But as we're going into this, there's always some kinds of pressure, maybe financial pressure. Maybe you've got bills that need to be paid by the end of this year, or as you're looking at Christmas or Christmas presents, that brings some pressure that you feel like you need to get things for certain people. But what we're going to look at in this series is just letting go of all of that baggage, to focus on the important things that God wants us to focus on and just leaving all of that baggage behind. Now, I understand when you're in your seats, sometimes we're just going to be honest, it's hard to focus on whoever is speaking. Sometimes you're thinking about, what you're going to eat for dinner that afternoon. You're thinking about maybe what you've got going on at home. You're planning for the next week. Some of you might have finals coming up. So you're thinking about all of these things that are going on. Well, I'm going to be honest. Whoever's up here always sometimes has some distractions too. There might be your husband putting a ladder up in the middle of service behind you for who knows what reason. People going in and out. People sometimes falling asleep. While you're preaching, there are always distractions no matter what you're doing. And what we're going to look at is how sometimes it can really be a fight to focus on whatever God has set for us. And we really want to look at that it's really important. Even though it's hard to focus, it's so worth it. When we look at this word distraction, it actually means a pulling apart or a separating, a drawing of the mind in different directions. And I have a picture up here that I think really shows this. And sometimes this is how I feel a lot. I don't know if you guys ever feel like this, is that just your mind is pulled in so many different ways. You have so many things going on, so many distractions. If you're a parent, you have to get your kids to their appointments and to school and to all the things that they have. You at work might have certain projects that are done by a certain time, or you have to turn in some things if you're a student. Also, time for relationships. We know that relationships are important, but we have all this other stuff going on, so we know, oh gosh, I got to make some time for my family relationships or my friend relationships. Then I got to figure out what's for supper. If you have that question, what are we doing? What are we eating tonight? What are we doing for dinner? So you have to figure all of that out. And with that, sometimes you have that weight of, oh, I'm supposed to be eating healthy. I'm supposed to exercise. Like I have all of these things that are always going around in our heads. Do you guys agree? We're kind of smaller today, so we can kind of just go back and forth. Do you guys agree with that? Hopefully that's not just me that just always feels like there's things going around. But these distractions can divide your heart. You can feel like your heart is getting pulled apart in different ways. They can also discourage your soul when you feel like you can't get to all of those things. And they can disengage you from your faith. You can say, that's not as important. It's not right here in the forefront, so I'm going to disengage from that a little bit and try to take care of these things. Now, we hear a lot about the devil is out to get us. The devil is out to destroy us. But I can tell you that the devil doesn't need to destroy you if he can distract you. And I'm going to say that one more time. The devil doesn't need to destroy you if he can distract you. Because if he can distract you away from God's purpose for you, you're just going to destroy yourself. So he doesn't have to do anything with it. Now, we're going to look at a story that we've actually this year looked at a few times, but we're going to look at it in a little different way. We're going to look at two sisters, Mary and Martha. Now, I don't know if you guys have people to your house very much or anything, but I have people to my house a lot. And most of the time, to be honest, I don't really care what my house looks like because most of the people that come over, it doesn't, really matter. They're all my friends and it doesn't matter. But on Tuesday evenings, I have a women's Bible study. And they're all my friends too, and they don't care if my house is a mess. But usually I get there about the same time as at least one of the other people that come to my house. So every time I get home, I do just a couple things, like I wipe down our counters, I pick up any trash that some of our children, one only child that lives there, I pick up some things that may have been left out, just do kind of like a clean sweep. But imagine if Jesus was coming to your house, like flesh and blood, Jesus was coming to your house. All the things that you would feel like you would need to make sure and have done and prepared. So that's what we're going to look at. We're in Luke chapter 10 and starting at verses 38 to 42. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, they came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted. Say that for me. She was what? Distracted. By all of the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, I love this line, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to come help me. And if you have more than one child, and I may put a little more spice in that than she had, but that's how I hear it because I have more than one child. And I love Jesus' response. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Now, Martha was preparing. She was getting food. She was getting the house picked up. She wasn't doing anything that was bad. She was doing what she thought needed to be done. But what God was telling her, what Jesus was telling her, was that what Mary is doing, just not worrying about all of those things and just sitting down and listening to me, was better. That is what I want for you. So most often, our choices are not between what is good and what is bad. You think about that. If you have a choice, and it's easy to see, this is the good choice, this is the bad choice, then we tend to choose what's good. sometimes it's hard because what is bad might be something that we're wanting or feeling like we need, but we can see what is good and what is bad. But sometimes the most difficult choices aren't between what's good and bad, but what is good and better. Martha was doing something that was good, but Jesus was asking her to do what Mary was doing, which was better. So as we have all those things going on in our mind, and as the devil is trying to distract us from God's purpose, how can we choose what is better, what is best for our life? So that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at 3 ways to help us get out of this distraction and try to figure out what is best for us. The very first way we're going to look at is to limit those distractions that come up in our lives. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 7:35, "I am saying this for your benefit. Do not place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord the best, with as few distractions as possible." Now, I'm not somebody that just picks out a verse and says, "Oh, this looks good for today," and uses it. So I want to tell you that this verse, actually, when he was writing this, he is actually writing it about marriage and about how that he sees that it's better to be single, to try to stay away from distractions in that area. But I think it really applies to us, what we're talking about today also, that if we have this focus of what God wants for us, then we need to take away the distractions that we have. What do you think is the number one distraction in our lives? Anybody? Besides your spouse. Any distractions? Any number one distraction in your life? Cell phone. That is the number one distraction in all of our lives. Sorry, I'm doing a little. In all of our lives. And it's in all of our lives, not just our kids. But on average, most people pick up their phone every 10 minutes just to check, just to see if they have a notification, see what's going on. It's just always there, picking it up every 10 minutes. Now, you may sit there and wonder, gosh, why am I not very productive? Why can I not get the things done that I'm supposed to be getting done? Why don't I have time to spend with God like I want to? Why are some of my relationships failing? Why am I not able to spend time with them? Well, imagine if you had a person coming to you every 10 minutes to distract you. And some of you that have small children know what this is like. But if you have that, you want them to go away. You want to get rid of them. You want to say, "You are distracting me for right now." But we do it ourselves with our phones, just picking them up every 10 minutes. An average person is on social media for 2 hours per day. If you have an iPhone, you have that comes at the end of the week that's like the guilt-ridden, this is how long you've been on everything. And sometimes you're just like, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? I'm on, Spotify, or I'm on, all these different apps so much." Now, it depends on your age, but the average age of people, they will spend at least 7 years of their life on social media. Now, imagine that. 7 years of your life just clicking, scrolling. And then you might see something, and then you feel left out. You see some pictures of friends or something that's happening, and you feel left out by something. So then when you feel left out, then you dive a little deeper to see what's going on, what's happened with them. And then so you start feeling unimportant. You feel disengaged from other people. So then you kind of maybe refresh it and you post something. And then you have that hope, oh, maybe, this person or maybe these people will engage with me on this. And then you get that little dopamine hit. And it just goes over and over and over. 7 years of your life, clicking, scrolling, emotions up and down, all of the time. I don't know about you guys, but the call that God has placed on my life is too important to spend 7 years of it just clicking and scrolling. And Solomon, in Proverbs talks about this immoral woman. And in that, he's talking about sin. So we're going to look today at distractions as sin. Solomon in Proverbs 5:8 says, "Stay away from her. Don't go near the door of her house." And that's how we're going to look at distractions today. Doing the best to stay away from her. Now, I would like to tell you, let's go throw our phones in the trash can and never use them again. But then I would never be able to get in touch with any of you. So I'm not saying that their phone, social media, all of those things are completely terrible things that we don't need to have at all. But we need to figure out how we can live with them and them not be a distraction to what God is asking us to do. So I just have a couple ideas on here. One is something that Caden, who's not here today, he has all the time is noise-canceling headphones. So he works partly at the daycare, but then he also works while our daycare is going on. And so he uses noise-canceling headphones when he's working up at his desk there or doing different things to kind of keep distractions of what's going on around away from him so he can concentrate. Another thing is if you have a certain app on your phone that you feel like is always a constant distraction that sucks you in, just delete that app. Last year, I was kind of a little obsessed with TikTok. I would watch all these videos, and then I would look and it'd be 2 hours later, and I'm still like scrolling, laughing at these, sending them to people. And so I just decided to delete that app. I didn't have TikTok at all for quite a while. I actually pretty recently got it back because so many of my friends were sending me TikToks and I wanted to be able to see them. But I have made sure as I got that back that I don't spend, and I see myself, I don't spend, I might look two or three and then I'm done. And I have that awareness that if I do feel like I'm getting sucked back into that, then I can just delete it again. But it really helped to delete that app. So if you have something that you feel is just always calling out to you, trying to distract you, just get rid of it. Another thing is to put your phone somewhere else. Now, you might be able to do that while you're working. You might be able to, put your phone, in your purse if you're working at your desk, or if you're meeting with someone that you're trying to form a relationship with. Don't put it out on the table of the restaurant you're at. Keep it away. One of the things that we did with our kids when they were younger is at bedtime, they would go up to their rooms and they would have to leave their phones downstairs in the kitchen plugged in for the night so they wouldn't be on them. Mark and I have talked about doing that, and we've actually watched a few TikToks about how great that would be. It's a little ironic. But so we're looking at like getting an alarm clock and putting our phones away at a certain time so those distractions won't be available to just pick up if we want those. Another thing that we can do is to turn off notifications. Fridays are my day off. So we have an app called GroupMe for our leadership and our daycare that is kind of like a group text that comes through. So on Fridays, I turn off all the notifications for that. Every once in a while, if depends on what I'm doing that day, I might just check it just to make sure that things are going okay, but it's on my time. It's not the notifications coming on. So if you're meeting with someone, if you when I'm writing sermons, I have a certain day that I work on my sermons or I work on writing, I turn off my notifications and try to turn over my phone too. So if there are things that you can do, I know that a lot of us have kids, maybe have, parents that are elderly, things that we can't just completely check out from the world, but there are things that you can do to limit those distractions as much as possible. Beyond our phone, sometimes there are relationships, our friendships, that are a distraction that can take you away from God's plan for your life. So you can limit those. You can not hang out with those people or not have them be part of your inner circle. Maybe you're in a dating relationship that is not godly, and you can break up that relationship. That is part of it. Anything that distracts you from the plan of God is something that we need to stay away from. So looking at choosing what is best. First of all, we can do everything we can to diminish those distractions. Secondly, we're going to focus on what's important. So look at what's most important. If you want to be successful, do more of what matters. Proverbs 4:25 reads, "Set your gaze on the path before you. With fixed purpose, look straight ahead, ignoring life's distractions. Watch where you're going. Stick to the path of truth, and the road will be safe and smooth before you." Now, I know you can't tell right now because I'm old and I have hips that don't work, but I used to be a dancer when I was young. So if you've ever seen dancers like spin around, one of the things that our coaches always taught us is to find a fixed point on, the wall or wherever we were at in front of us. And obviously we're not owls, so we can't spin our heads around. We eventually have to go around. But as we're doing turns, to fix our eyes as much as we could and then quickly look back at that spot. And one, that helped us look nice as we were doing spins, but it mostly helped us not get dizzy as you're doing spins because you're looking at a fixed point. And I was thinking of that whenever I was writing this, about how that helped us to keep our eyes. When we think of the story of Peter walking on water, if you haven't heard that story, the disciples were in a boat and Jesus was walking on water towards them. And Peter, who was like the Enneagram 7, the ADHD one, that just would do everything without thinking, he jumped out of the boat and wanted to walk on water like Jesus. And as long as he had his eyes fixed on Jesus, he could stay afloat and walk on water towards Jesus. But as soon as, the other disciples were calling out to him or saying things, he would turn around and take his eyes off Jesus, he would start sinking. And the only way for him to rise above the water again is to keep his eyes on Jesus. And I think that some of us feel like we are sinking. We look at that picture I had up earlier with all of those things that are going on, and we feel like we're sinking because we can't keep up with all of that. There are so many, balls bouncing, so many plates spinning, so many things that are going on that we cannot keep up with, and we feel like we are sinking in that. But if we just lift up, look at what Jesus has for us, and keep our eyes on him and what's most important, don't worry about that baggage, that weight that we place on ourselves. Look what he wants for us, then we can rise above that and we can follow him. Some ways to do that is the first thing of every day should be to focus on Jesus. Reading your Bible, prayer. One of the things that I am 100% not perfect at this, so I'm not doing, but one of the things that I have tried to do is on my phone, I have the Bible app, and I'm reading the Bible through a year. So every morning before I get out of bed, the first thing I do is read my passage for that day. So it helps me straight focus on God. When I get to work, which is here, before I get out of the car, and I don't even know where I got this prayer from, but I do just a quick prayer where I kind of go down my body and I talk about making sure that everything is focused on God, that my thoughts are focused on God, that I see people that need help that day, that my speech is focused on God, my heart is focused on God, what my hands and my feet do are focused on God. And it's a quick 30-second prayer before I get out of my car. So I have had 2 ways before I even get to work to make sure that my focus is God. So I have to turn over because it's distracting me because I keep getting texts from people. But that focus is on God. A second thing that you can do is the first day of the week is to go to church. So we have Sunday, our first day, and you guys did a great job. Thank you. That you have that time to come here and to worship with other people who are in the same boat as you, who love God like you do, and to spend time getting to know them and almost getting that refreshment, hopefully getting a little teaching, but honestly, this is the least important part of church. It's just getting together and being able to see and focus on what God has for you that next week. The next thing is that our first resources are our tithe. So when you get paid, that first 10% comes back to God. And the reason that we do that is because we want to have control of all of our resources. And to give up that 10% is giving God control and saying, I trust you. I know that you're going to bless the rest because all of it is yours. I'm going to bless the rest. He's going to bless the rest of it. And I'm going to give you control and give you that first 10%. Another thing is the first of the year is to have a special time of prayer and fasting. And we're going to help you with that. Those of you that were around in August, we did the 21 days of prayer, and you got like a little special thing to read and to pray. We're going to do that again with our whole conference starting the beginning of January. So you will have special things to read, special things to pray that we will pray as a whole church and actually as a whole conference. And then you can fast what you want to fast from. That's on your own. But we will help you with that at the beginning of each year. We do that. So just taking those times just to make sure that Jesus and your relationship and your focus is with him first. So all of those other things don't matter. You're never going to just stumble into righteousness in a good relationship with God. Just think about like the relationships that you're in now, either friendships or are dating or spouses. You don't stumble in to a good relationship. You have to work at it. You have to talk to each other. You have to listen to each other. You have to be with each other. That's the same thing with your relationship with God. You have to work on it and make him first and a priority. One of the things that I think is really important is just to cancel the schedule. And this is very hard for me to say because if you don't know me, I am a scheduled person. I like a schedule. And obviously you have things, appointments for different things. You have, work that you have to go to. I'm not saying, just like, go live off the land somewhere. we have to be part, some of us have to be part of society. But cancel what you think is important. It is very important to prioritize experiences over things and relationships over tasks. I'm going to say that one more time. Prioritize experiences over things and relationships over tasks. And I was really convicted yesterday of this. It's funny how sometimes when you're working on a sermon and then God puts stuff in your path and you're like, yeah, that's right. This is what I was supposed to do too. I had a friend yesterday who lives in Mount Carmel, wanted to come. She had a Christmas party in Evansville and wanted to come and use our stove to cook her food for her Christmas party. And, sure, okay, come over. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with her. But it was my Saturday, so I had some things that I was planning on getting all done. And I had my schedule in my head, so when she came at a certain time, I would be able to spend time with her. Well, she texted me about 2 hours early and said, I'm almost there. And so I unintentionally probably hurt her feelings because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't get everything done. And she was like, oh, I don't mean to intrude and, different things. And I realized it was fine. I still got to, there was stuff that I didn't get done, but it wasn't important. I got to sit and I got to spend time with her yesterday. So think about that when those things come in that seem like they might be distractions, sometimes what you had planned is the actual distraction, and the purpose God had for you that day was that person that's coming to talk to you and to have this relationship with you. Focusing on people is the most important thing we can do. Proverbs 4:26 reads, don't allow yourself to be sidetracked even for a moment, or to take a detour that leads to darkness. Because if we're not intentional with our time and with our focus, we can easily be turned to things that are not important. So, looking at choosing what's best, we've looked at diminished distractions, focus on what's important, and the third thing is to listen to the voice of God. I love the imagery in this verse, Isaiah 30:21. And your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, this is the way, walk in it, when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. So I imagine myself trying to make a decision, and I'm walking on this path, and there's almost like a fork, and I'm trying to make this decision. It's not between good and bad. It's between two things that are good, but what does God want me to do? And I can just hear, not his actual voice most of the time, but just his guiding, his nudge behind me. One of the best ways to hear God is to read his word. I'm always, when I'm praying or I have someone that I'm talking to and I'm looking for answers and I read his word, you can feel it. It's hard to explain. It's not necessarily that you hear words, but you can just feel this is what he's wanting me to do, or this is what he's wanting me to tell this person, as long as you listen to those words and not be worried about the silly things that can cause distractions in your life. So we're going to let what we do is we're going to let the noise of this world distract us from the voice of God. We don't want to do that. That's what happens sometimes is the noise. Again, that image I think is so good. All those things that happen, that's what we end up doing. We let that happen, but we don't want to let the noise of this world distract us from the voice of God. If you are seeking God and will want him to speak to you, he will answer you. He will tell you what to do. He will prompt you and correct you and nudge you if you are listening for him. So, the devil and every force in hell cannot destroy us. There's, verses, there's Hallmark cards, there's all those things that are like, Jesus is with you, we're with you. The devil can't destroy you. And I believe that is true. But the devil can distract you from things. He can put things in your path that will take your focus away, and we can destroy ourselves when we do that. What's important is to focus not just what's on good, but what is best for us, the focus that God has for us. So as you think about this baggage, like I said, the rest of this month, we're going to talk about different baggage that we bring sometimes into the season. But this week, as you go, I want you to think about what are some distractions that come up? What are some ways that the devil is taking you away or turning you away? And how can you focus on what's most important? What can you do to better hear his voice, to focus on what's most important? You guys will go ahead and bow your heads. God, thank you so much for just being here with us today. And thank you for giving each one of us a purpose and a focus that we can think about you. Now, this week, this message actually really touched me, and thinking about all the distractions that are going on in my life. And so I'm hoping that some of you also will think about this throughout this week and to go on, and I would love to pray with you. If any of you are just thinking about those distractions and would like us to pray this week for you as you're trying to figure out, listen to the voice of God and get rid of some of those distractions, if you would raise your hand so we can pray for you this week. We have lots of hands up, thank you. And so know, if you put your hand up, that this is something that everybody deals with, those distractions going on. So God, just help us as a whole to just do the best that we can to focus on you, to realize what is better. We also know that we can't get rid of those distractions if we don't know you. Our focus only comes from you, and we can only have that focus if we know Jesus. So if you are here today and you haven't made Jesus the king of your life, the person that you follow, the person that is the most important, and given everything to him, and you would like to do that today, raise your hand, please, so we can pray for you. Thank you for having so many people here today that already love you and already want their focus to be you. Help us throughout this week to just have that focus, to think of ways to set you first, to look at our relationships, look at different distractions that we have, so you can live out being the most important